Good morning and welcome to this early edition of the Stylo News Intelligence Update. I'm your host. Today is the 17th of June 2026. In this explainer, we're going to focus our geopolitical lens on a theater of operations that doesn't respect any physical borders, the cyber domain. Over the past 2 weeks, we've witnessed a significant evolution in global network intrusions, the deployment of artificial intelligence, and how nations are posturing their defenses. We'll lay out the facts, walk you through the major events, and provide a clear, neutral assessment of the current digital landscape.
Before we jump into the briefing, a quick note about our sponsor. This explainer is brought to you by ProWave AI, the developer behind Stylo Intel, which is the premier AI-powered open-source intelligence program, as well as Stylo News, the commercial version you can find on the web and through their mobile apps. Together, we bring you the digital battlefield, state hackers, AI warfare, and global risk. Let's dive right into this morning's intelligence. Here is the rundown for today's briefing. We'll be covering the global cyber threat overview, looking at the local to international impacts, examining decision makers and defenses, analyzing sentiment and sources, and we'll wrap things up with a strategic forecast. Let's start with Section 1, our global cyber threat overview. Over the past 2 weeks, the data shows us a sustained, intensifying level of cyber activity coming from both state-sponsored entities and highly organized criminal networks. It's a complex map out there. Over in the European theater, intelligence confirms continued Russian-linked operations. We're talking about GPS spoofing that's actively disrupting European aviation, along with pro-Russian DDoS attacks hitting Italian logistics and maritime infrastructure. Now, panning over to the Asian and Middle Eastern theater, the data highlights China's Salt Typhoon operations, which have reportedly compromised U.S. telecom providers and sensitive wiretap data. We're also tracking Iranian-linked campaigns deploying malware through spoofed enterprise portals. What we're looking at is a coordinated, multi-front pressure campaign using cyber tools for espionage and infrastructure disruption. But the threat isn't just limited to nation-states. We are seeing state-level tactics bleeding right into financially motivated crime. Just recently, major tech firms had to coordinate a massive effort to disrupt a botnet that was targeting software developers and supply chain attacks. Meanwhile, down in Latin America, cybercriminal groups are intensifying their theft of municipal and federal government data. And we're also tracking the Silent Ransom Group, a highly sophisticated extortion network, going squarely after law firms. These are transnational, highly professionalized operations that are running parallel to, and sometimes intersecting with, state interests. Moving on to Section 2, local to international impacts. A cyber operation might be launched from the other side of the globe, but the effects are felt locally. It's really vital to measure the ripple effect across society. At the local level, a breach of social program databases in Mexico has threatened the privacy of some very vulnerable populations. Those cities like Morelia are actively fortifying their defenses. Over in Ukraine, Russian cyber tactics have shifted toward targeting individual military personnel right on their personal devices. Zooming out to the national scale, the U.S. is deploying advanced AI models like Mythos for both cyber defense and offense, while South Korea is grappling with a critical shortage of cybersecurity talent amid a spike in data breaches. And internationally, the landscape is defined by transnational AI-driven attacks that require unprecedented cross-border cooperation to stop. To give you a practical idea of how these vulnerabilities play out, consider this recent example. Early in June, hackers exploited an AI chatbot support system on Instagram. The automated chatbot essentially failed to verify user identity before resetting credentials. The result was unauthorized access to several high-profile accounts, including those of former government officials. The key takeaway here is that while AI automation makes things faster, rushing it into critical security roles introduces some very real systemic risks. That brings us to Section 3, decision makers and defenses. As the threat environment escalates, how are global leaders and allied nations actually fortifying their digital perimeters? Well, the sentiment among defense officials is one of absolute realism. Yossi Karati of the Israel National Cyber Directorate summed it up perfectly when he said, "Cyber warfare is a permanent conflict without ceasefire, requiring continuous vigilance and technological adaptation." It's a stark reminder that modern states can't just build a firewall and walk away. Defense now requires the active, ongoing integration of AI to monitor and neutralize threats in real time. We're seeing a similar stance at the institutional level. Jean Ellerman-Kingome, NATO's Assistant Secretary General for Cyber and Digital Transformation, is a major advocate for a collaborative approach. He emphasizes building strategic partnerships with industry to strengthen collective resilience in cyberspace. The realization here is that governments know they cannot defend the digital domain alone. They are pushing hard for shared norms and deep partnerships with the private sector to protect critical infrastructure. And these strategies are actively translating into concrete action. We are seeing measured, specific steps to implement collaborative AI defenses. First, South Korea launched Project K-Glasswing to consolidate an indigenous AI cybersecurity infrastructure. In the private sector, Microsoft just unveiled M-Dash, which is a system using over 100 collaborative AI agents built specifically to hunt down and mitigate vulnerabilities. Finally, the United States is leading multinational AI security projects that focus on automated vulnerability detection. These are tangible deployments designed to outpace our adversaries. Next up, Section 4, Sentiment and Source Analysis.
Public discourse naturally shapes policy, so we've objectively analyzed social media and intelligence reporting to gauge public attitude. Looking at the latest data from X, formerly Twitter, the global discourse is highly fragmented. It's essentially split into two camps. On one side, there's cautious optimism and positive engagement around increased defense budgets, ethical AI frameworks, and international alliances. But on the flip side, sentiment turns sharply negative and alarmist when people talk about active geopolitical threats, physical strikes in Ukraine, and vulnerabilities in the software supply chain. Basically, the public supports defensive innovation, but they remain deeply anxious about the immediate realities of cyber warfare. When we zoom in on specific online communities, those perspectives become even clearer. Official channels like the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, project official vigilance, and engagement metrics show the public has high trust in them. Conversely, geopolitical tracking accounts like GeoPanic app reflect a lot of alarm over real-world escalations, particularly in Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, tech-focused communities like AI Nowsphere maintain a pretty optimistic outlook on establishing ethical hacking frameworks and responsible AI policies. These sources give us a clear map of exactly where different factions stand on the current intelligence. Finally, let's look at Section 5, our strategic forecasts and actions. Based on the patterns over the past 2 weeks, here's what you need to keep an eye on in the near term. First, expect continued stealthy, state-linked espionage targeting global telecommunications networks. Second, we forecast a rapid adaptation of AI tech, serving simultaneously as offensive weapons and defensive shields. Third, be prepared for increased targeting of municipal and national government databases by both criminal and state actors. And lastly, ransomware operations will keep evolving, moving away from just simple encryption and toward complex extortion involving highly sensitive, stolen data. All of this leaves us with a critical, structural question about the future of global defense. As AI tools become simultaneously the weapon and the shield, operating at speeds far beyond human capacity, can international regulation and diplomatic agreements realistically outpace the sheer speed of automated cyber warfare? It's a puzzle that decision-makers globally are trying to solve right now. And that concludes our morning intelligence update. Thank you for joining us for this explanation of the current cyber domain. To hear the comprehensive, detailed analysis, be sure to listen to the full Stylo News Intel Update audio program on your favorite channel. And for continuous, AI-powered news on demand, make sure you subscribe over at www.stylonews.com. I'm your host, wishing you a secure and informed day. Good morning.